Welcome to My Weight Live, everyone. We're here with weight management expert Dr. Yoni Freedhoff talking about reaching our best weight. Dr. Friedhoff is an internationally recognized expert and the medical director of the Bariatric Medical Institute, an ethical, evidence-based weight management center. Before we get started, though, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what's on your mind. Dr. Friedhoff, we are so excited to speak with you tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So, Dr. Friedhoff, among your many accomplishments, you're known for creating the term best weight. Tell us, how do you define what a person's best weight is?
It's pretty straightforward, actually. A person's best weight is whatever weight they reach when they're living the healthiest life they actually honestly enjoy. Where a person could not happily eat less and they could not happily exercise more, whatever their weight is, living that life, that's their best weight.
So what I love about the concept of best weight is that it conveys the idea that while of course we want to be healthy, it's really important to enjoy our lives too. So how have you seen the blending of kind of those two values work for your patients?
Well, so I started off with a much more traditional approach, looking for 5% weight loss, 10% weight loss, using meal replacements. I mean, the stuff that I was taught back in the early 2000s. Realized fairly quickly that although those are achievable goals for many people, it really was impersonal. It took away from the individual in terms of their challenges, successes, and all the various determinants of their weight. What I also found was that shifting to best weight, which we did in our office back in around 2005, it was embraced instantaneously. People understood that their job is, in fact, like everything in life, to do our best, where our best varies. Our best varies between days. Our best varies consequent to understandable things, holidays and birthdays and tragedies, and also sometimes just because we're people. And I think giving people permission to do their best rather than to try to always be perfectly perfect was extremely important for people's long-term abilities to maintain their efforts at behavior change.
Well, I love this idea of, not needing to be perfect. And we're going to talk about kind of all or nothing approaches a little bit later. But you said in a conversation a few weeks ago that every approach has success stories. Talk about how you really do try to work with your patients to come up with a personalized program that's right for them.
Even the world's dumbest diets, and dumb is in the eye of the beholder, but certainly some from a scientific perspective are really quite staggering at times. But there will be success stories from all of them. And so what we try to do is have our patients working one-on-one with our dietitians, with myself, with our trainers, to explore their lifestyles. What are their job requirements? What are their backgrounds in cooking and in health in general? What are their caregiving requirements? What are their medical concerns or issues? And of course, what foods do they like and what cooking skills do they bring to the table? And what do they want to try? And have they had successes before? I mean, in many cases, it's experimentation. We actually call them experiments rather than goal setting. We set experiments. Let's see if we can figure out what pattern of eating, what pattern of living leaves you the most satisfied, the happiest, and the healthiest. And we just try different things until we figure out what fits for that individual.
All right, so many things to talk to you, Dr. Friedhoff, but we're going to take a break and do our trivia question. Folks, if you answer this question, you will get some delicious soup and chili recipes delivered to your Facebook Messenger inbox. Our wonderful dietitian has come up with some really tasty options here. The roasted cauliflower soup is my favorite. You will get them for free if you answer tonight's question, which is true or false. Your skin is the largest organ of your body. Is that true or false? Is your skin your body's largest organ? Put your best guess in the comments and you will get those soup recipes delivered to your Facebook Messenger inbox. Dr. Friedhoff, another aspect of best weight is recognizing that the lifestyle changes we make have to be ones we can envision sticking with for the long term. So how do you encourage people to kind of translate those experiments into recognizing, okay, this is something I can stick with 5 to 10 years down the road?
Well, so I'm not 100% certain anybody can predict what will be coming 5 to 10 years down the road. Life happens, and sometimes the happening is good and sometimes not so good, but definitely it varies. But I think teaching people to ask themselves the question, do I actually like the life that I'm living? Could I happily continue living this way is crucial for any weight management approach. If there's suffering involved, it doesn't tend to last.
We've heard so many people say something along the lines of like, I can't get off my plan to have a couple of pieces of pizza with my family for a celebration. And I do think it can be easy to get into a very super regimented mindset of feeling like it's all or nothing. How can people who feel this way kind of recognize that that's probably not going to work over the long term and start kind of transitioning back into where they're really focused on enjoying their life?
Well, so again, I think that people are individuals. There will be some. I've met a few here and there over the years where for them, true sort of regimented, strict living is a lifestyle they can sustain long term. But ultimately, I think that a simple exercise people can employ mentally is to ask themselves how they might counsel their best friend, their sibling, their close loved one who was complaining or was expressing their concerns about the life that they were living. I think there's a really great chance that even that individual who is being very strict with themselves would explain to their best friend, loved one, sister, or brother that, hey, maybe you need to relax a little bit and sustain this longer term and not be so perfect, rather than to be so stuck in this idea that it's all or nothing, where all or nothing usually, ultimately, eventually leads the majority of us to nothing.
I love counseling a good friend is always the best way to understand what should we be doing for ourselves too. Folks, we do this show every month, and I want to make sure you never miss an episode. Text the word WAIT to 404-737-0767, and we will send you a message when we have a new interview with an expert. We'll also send some delicious recipes to you as a bonus for signing up. Dr. Friedhoff, some folks watching this show will say, I have been dieting and being very regimented and pigeonholed for my entire life, literally for as long as I can remember. How do you recommend someone start breaking the diet cycle and begin focusing on their best weight?
So I really do think that the first step is having a sort of a reckoning with what has and hasn't worked over time. And that reckoning, too, might come to the conclusion that, hey, I've tried a ton of things, and despite my best efforts, I haven't got where I want to go. That's okay. I think about all the chronic medical conditions out there. I think one of the easiest ones to use as an analogy is hypertension. So hypertension, high blood pressure, it absolutely has many lifestyle levers. People can go on low sodium diets. People can adopt exercise programs. They can focus on sleep and meditation. Weight loss may be a focus, but ultimately, people are very comfortable appreciating that sometimes their own best efforts don't get them where they want to go. And also, many people are comfortable appreciating that, you know what, I'm not ready to make or willing or wanting to make those efforts. I'm happy with the life I'm living. I've got this thing that I didn't choose called high blood pressure. I think weight's the same. So I think there are times where people, when they explore all the things they've tried, might come to the conclusion, hey, I really have done as much as I can. I'm trying my hardest. And that actually is when a person might want to explore whether medication is suitable for them. We have some safe and effective medications now. They're just, it really has changed, I think, the landscape of medical weight management. Surgery is an option for many people as well. But I think just appreciating that your job is to do your best. You're welcome to try something new, but expecting to suffer long term or expecting to redo a diet that didn't last, that you didn't enjoy enough to sustain, that may be a mistake. And I think we need to appreciate that we're not choosing to struggle with higher appetites or higher cravings or lower fullnesses. That's just the way it is. And although there are some strategies that might be employed from a lifestyle perspective to help, and there also will be people whose best efforts don't get them where they want to go. And letting go of this idea that if you just want it badly enough, you will absolutely make it happen to whatever place you want to get to is crucial too for a person's long-term success.
So I remember very clearly the first time I heard Dr. Sue Peterson say that for many people living with obesity, diet and exercise alone will not be enough to help them reach a healthier weight. And that's what I hear you say, but I feel like that is still kind of a revolutionary concept. Can you talk about why that is and why it goes against kind of this ingrained idea that, as you said, if I just work hard enough, I'll get to where I want to be?
Well, there's just so many things beyond our control affecting our weights. So there's literally thousands of genes and dozens of hormones involved in the regulation of weight. And that's everything from metabolism, how many calories a person burns, to how efficiently they might extract energy from their foods, to their degrees of hunger, cravings, how long it takes them to feel full, how long they feel full for, and also to the emotional benefits of food, where food absolutely has an emotional impact on us. It lowers our body's primary stress hormone levels when we consume it. And then, of course, there's all the other things that affect weight. Different medical conditions can affect our weights for sure, either directly or indirectly through the medications that are required. Whether a person has a sweet tooth, how many calories a person might drink in a day, how their social lives work in context of eating out in restaurants, their job responsibilities, caregiving responsibilities, and the list truly goes on and on and on. And when there's thousands of genes and hormones, none of which I can change, I can't even test for them, and there's all these other factors as well, this idea that, oh, if I just try hard enough, I'm going to get where I want to go. It's similar to school, where a kid's job in school is to go to class, do their homework, and study. But there's limits to all of those things. And then the grade a kid gets is the grade a kid gets. And not every kid studying the same amount is going to get the same grade. And I think it's very much the same idea, but quite frankly, more difficult with weight management, where we really are swimming against our own genetic currents and metabolic currents, societal currents. It's a very challenging thing. If this was something that people could simply do on their own, if everybody would succeed simply by trying, I don't think we'd be speaking on this podcast, and this issue wouldn't be such a major one in society today, nor a focus of medical care and attention.
So you alluded to earlier the fact that, lifestyle changes can get a person so far, but now we have some really good treatments, whether that's medications or surgery, to kind of help them be more successful. Talk a little bit about those treatments, and then I have a couple of questions for you about kind of talking to our doctor about getting them.
Yeah, so, it's a new-ish event in that we have actually safe, helpful, and effective medications. Those are all really useful. Again, people aren't choosing to struggle with hunger. They're not choosing to have cravings. They're not choosing to not feel full. That's just how it is. That's how their body is working. And then suddenly, for a large percentage of patients on these medications, they don't have that battle anymore. And I'll hear regularly in my office that this is how I've always wanted to feel, or this is how I'm supposed to feel around food. Because again, they weren't choosing to not feel that way. And so these medications are very helpful and leading people to weight losses in the neighborhoods of between 10 and 20% of their presenting total weights. Surgery is a terrific option as well. I'm not a surgeon, but I certainly work in partnership with the Ottawa Hospital here where I am. And we provide in my office the pre and post surgical care for 30% of Ottawa's bariatric surgical patients. They lead to weight losses of between 20 and 30%, and they're quite durable losses as well. And having worked with, I'd say at this point, certainly over 1,000 patients who have surgery, I can honestly state that there's not one in that group who regrets their decisions. And so we've got these options, and it's early days still. And my hope is that a decade or two from now, we will have drugs that are as effective as high blood pressure drugs are right now, where for high blood pressure, if a person has it, they see their doctor prescribes a drug, provides no information, counseling, or education, just says, take this pill, come back, and we'll recheck it. And my hope is we're going to get there with anti-obesity medications as well, where it'll simply be as easy as a doctor prescribing a medication, and suddenly a person who was not choosing to struggle with hunger, cravings, and lack of fullness will no longer struggle and will lose surgical amounts of weight without it being a fight, and safely and effectively, just like we see with our anti-blood pressure medications.
So to get access to all of those treatments you're talking about, we need to seek medical help. And I know for a lot of folks, they really want to be able to do this all on their own. So tell us why talking to a physician like you is an important step for real long-term success for many people.
Well, so, I think that if it was as straightforward as, again, mustering our own willpower to make it happen, we would have all made it happen, and that this wouldn't be an area of medicine. And so I think, again, using the analogy of other chronic medical conditions, there are efforts people can make on their own that can help, but oftentimes they don't reduce the risk or the impact of their conditions sufficiently, and that's when they seek medical attention. And I think the same should be true with this. It's not a failure to seek help from your medical professional. That's what we're here for. And unfortunately, I will say that not all medical professionals are necessarily coming at obesity the same way. There's definitely still a lot of stigma and weight bias among medical professionals. It's getting better, but it is still out there. And sometimes it will be challenging for patients with specific physicians. if there's an opportunity to get another physician, if you're running into trouble with your own, go for it. But that's not always the case, at least not here in Canada. So all this to say that we shouldn't think of obesity any differently than we think of any other chronic medical condition, and seeking help from medical professionals is part of a person's self-care.
So I will add here that if you are looking for a physician near you who specializes in treating obesity or excess weight, go to our website and look at our physician locator tool. It lists the physicians in Canada who can give you access to the medical treatments and support that's right for you. We will link to that in the comments. So, Dr. Freedhoff, many people in Canada say there's not a physician who specializes in obesity near them, nor is there a virtual option in their province. And you have come up with a great solution to this problem. Tell us about your virtual clinic, Constant Health, and how it works.
Basically, we recognized quite a while ago that there were two big issues in traditional obesity medical care. One is the geographic requirement of being near an expert team. And because there really aren't a sufficient number of expertly trained doctors and dietitians, etc., we saw this as a big obstacle to overcome. The other one is, also related to traditional care of heading into an office, and that is not having touch points with your patients other than every 2 to 4 weeks, where they'll come into the office for 15 minutes, a half an hour, they'll meet with someone, but we don't know what was going on and what type of struggles were occurring during those 2 weeks. And so what we wanted was a digital tool that would allow us to overcome both of those obstacles. And so with the help of developers and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, we put together our own app. It's called Constant Health. It's only in Canada right now. It's not currently available in the States. And what it is a tool that allows our dietitians to have superpowers, where that digital tool provides the ability to set experiments with patients through both text messaging and video conferencing. We do have a food diary. I think food diaries are crucial, not to shame, blame, or police people, but rather to think of it as the receipts you bring to your accountant. But it allows our team and our dietitians to be able to see what's going on. And much more importantly, with those experiments that we set with people, we can see if they're struggling at the time of struggle, and we can intervene, whether it's to reframe an experiment, whether it's to book an additional appointment, whether it's simply to check in and offer encouragement. But that ability to reach people near or at their times of struggle and beyond the boundaries of geography is crucial. And for Canadian listeners, there is the ability for their physicians to apply for funded spots, where Novo Nordisk was kind enough to offer us a clinical grant where we can offer funding for doctors for their patients to access this program. And for those who don't have physicians or physicians who aren't willing or able to refer, it is delivered entirely by dietitians, which means if a person has insurance coverage for dietetics, they can cover the vast majority of the cost of the program.
Wonderful. For folks listening who are interested in this, we will link to it in the comments so that you can go on the Constant Health website and learn more. In case you're just joining us, folks, we're here with Dr. Yoni Freedhoff, an internationally recognized weight management expert, talking about how to reach our best weight. And we're giving away some delicious soup recipes if you answer our trivia question, which is, true or false, your skin is the largest organ of your body? Is that true or false? Put your best guess in the comments and you will get those tasty soup recipes delivered to your Facebook Messenger inbox. Dr. Freedhoff, diet and exercise alone aren't enough to treat obesity, and yet the food industry is still having a huge impact on the health of people in North America and worldwide. We know you have some strong feelings about this. Let's talk about how our food environment has changed over the last 60 years and what role that shift has played in rising obesity rates.
Well, so I think one of the biggest factors, of course, is available calories per person. So we've just got more food than we ever did beforehand. And as a consequence, perhaps, restaurants and, just us in general, we're serving more. So our serving sizes have grown very dramatically over the course of the past 60 years. So even if you were ordering the same meal that whole time, you'll be getting a lot more of it than you used to. Restaurants value quantity as a means to draw people back in, as well as decadence. And so it's no surprise that restaurant calories are exceedingly high. Couple that with the fact that our lives have really dramatically become quite frenetic where we are constantly working. We've got connections 24/7s to our jobs and to our smartphones, where we've got marketing being put together by the madmen of the world today. These are people who have tools at their disposal, including functional MRI machines and neuropsychologists and eye tracking and more to try to ensure that they get their messages across. And now we've got generations of children growing up attached to their devices where they are being advertised to as well. And so we are at a place where there's just so much more food, so much more push towards food, that people struggle. And then there's the concept of ultra-processed foods having a unique impact on weight, which is still being sussed out, but it certainly would appear that they have a unique role to play in all of this. Having said all of that, I'm not sure it's the food industry's job to be a social service organization or care about our health or weight. Their job is to sell food. And I think the sooner we as a society stop sort of hoping and expecting for them to change, the better. We need to ban advertising to children, I think, altogether. We need to see real and robust changes to laws around school food and marketing. We need to see changes in terms of what restaurants are offering, but we're not going to get those changes simply because they're good for us and the restaurant is supposed to do the right thing. We're going to need society to change. And I do think actually we're moving in the right direction. I think we're moving very slowly in the right direction, but I think people sometimes get stuck in this idea that it has to be fast. I think that's because we have short lives. But if it takes 2, 3, 4, 500 years to right the ship, it's pretty quick in the grand scheme of things. It's just not quick enough for us as individuals.
So you sort of answered this question, but my next question for you was kind of how do we fight back? Like, what suggestions do you have for people to kind of resist the influence of food marketing, not only for themselves, but for their children?
So fighting back, I think that the first place that we need to fight back is the place we have the most control, which is in our own homes. And I think it's really crucial, and it's such an important thing for me to mention, is that there's a lot of privilege attached to this discussion. So I think that we forget that. I think that we forget that as a society. We forget that as medical professionals. The privilege and the degrees of privilege required to intentionally change behavior in the name of health is staggering. From a time perspective, a resources perspective, a health perspective, this is a big undertaking. And I think that we need to stop simply expecting people to be able to do it because it's good for them. But for those who have the privilege to affect change, changing our home turf is the most important place to start. And I think the easiest way to think about it is trying to incorporate more cooking, more family dinners, fewer liquid calories, fewer restaurant meals. I mean, these are really straightforward things that will help to some degree. But I really do think that trying to take care of our home turf is the most important place first, and then spreading out to try to deal with schools and coaches and arenas, etc. We can write to our politicians if we really feel moved. But again, their job is to get reelected. Their job is not necessarily to do the best by health either. But with enough voices, they might try to affect changes. But I really do think that we are in the very early days of healthy living and focusing on healthy living. And the first step will be in our own homes.
All right, last question for me. And it's a question I've been asking every physician we talk to. What is the number one thing that you wish people trying to lose weight would know?
The most important piece to remember is that scales don't measure anything other than gravity. And our job is to simply do our best, and wherever that takes us, it takes us. And if we need further help because our best doesn't get us medically far enough or quality of life far enough, that there are actually now interventions available that may help an individual. That's the most important thing for people to remember for sure, and also that there is no one right best way for everybody. If there were, we'd be there. And so instead, it's about trying to figure out what works best for us as individuals, and recognizing, too, that our best efforts will vary by day, by month, by season for all sorts of different reasons.
Dr. Freedhoff, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an absolutely fascinating conversation.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
And a big thank you to everyone watching at home. We appreciate you all being here with us and chatting with us in the comments. Speaking of which, here is the answer to tonight's trivia question. True or false, your skin is your body's largest organ? It is true. If you didn't get to answer the trivia question, but you'd still like those soup recipes, leave a comment for us and tell us what you thought of tonight's show. We will be back with you in a few weeks. Text the word WAIT to 404-737-0767 to get alerted when we go live with a new interview. Until then, please stay safe and take good care.